Hello dear students, it's your biology teacher and today I'm going to start a new chapter, that is chapter number 2, which deals with animal tissues. So my dear students, in our previous class we have learned about plant tissues. So under that topic we have learned about different types of plant tissues which perform different sort of functions there in plant's body. Now in the similar manner, here in this chapter we'll be learning about different types of animal tissues and its function inside animal body. So let us start the chapter. In multicellular organisms, a group of similar cells performs a specific function. So there in the multicellular organisms, so multicellular organism means organism having more than one cell. Those organisms having more than one cell are considered as multicellular organisms. So in multicellular organisms, a group of similar cells perform a specific function. So such an aggregation is called tissue. So group of similar kind of cell comes together and perform some specific functions which are called as tissues. So those are tissues which perform some sort of function there in animals body as well. Like the plants, animals also have different types of tissues. So as I told you, like plant tissues, animal also has got different types of tissues and it also has got its own work to perform there in animal's body. So here in this chapter we'll be learning about different types of animal tissues. Now before starting the different types of animal tissues, I would like to show one chart where you can easily see the differentiation of animal tissues. So how this animal tissues is divided into different types. Now animal tissues are of four basic types, which are epithelial tissues, connective tissues, third one is muscular tissues, and last one is nervous tissues. Now if you see the second one, connective tissue, it is further divided into three different types, which are connective tissue proper, skeletal tissues, and fluid connective tissues. Likewise, this connective tissue also is subdivided into two types, that is areolar and adipose. Similarly, skeletal tissues also is divided into two types, that is cartilage and bone. And fluid connective tissue also is divided into two types, that is blood and lymph. Now the third kind of tissue, which is also divided into three different types, which are voluntary muscles, involuntary muscles, and cardiac muscles. So these are the different types of tissues present inside animal's body and which performs different sort of functions inside animal body. So now let us start with the animal tissues. So on the basis of type and function of the cells, animal tissues can be grouped into four basic types. So animal tissues can be categorized or can be grouped into four basic types. So that means there are four different types of animal tissues. So they are epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscular tissues, and nervous tissues. So you can see the pictures of four different types of tissues. So connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscular tissue, or we can call as muscle tissue also, and the last one is nervous tissue. So this is how these different types of tissue looks when we see these tissue under microscope. Now the first kind of tissue, epithelial tissues. Now epithelial tissue is a thin protective layer of cells which covers the external surface of the body as well as inner linings of all the internal organs. Now the first kind of animal tissue is epithelial tissue, and these tissues are thin and they are protective layer of cells. So that means this covers the external surface of our body. So that means external surface of body is made up of epithelial tissue, and it is also present there in the inner lining of all the internal organs. So we have got different types of organs inside our body. So the inner lining of the organs are made up of epithelial tissues. For example, the outer layer of the skin, inner lining of the mouth, and organs such as esophagus, stomach, intestine, and lungs. So here in these organs, these epithelial tissues are present. So outer layer of the skin is also made up of epithelial tissues. Inner lining of the mouth also contains these epithelial tissues, and organs inner lining or the organs outermost portion of the organ also is made up of epithelial tissue. Organs such as esophagus, stomach, intestine, and lungs, their inner linings are made up of epithelial tissues. Now structure. How epithelial tissue looks. The cells of the epithelial tissue are tightly fit together, having no space between them. So now I'd like to show different types of epithelial tissue, and with the help of these structures you can easily make it out what I mean to say with this small sentence. The cells of the epithelial tissue are tightly fit together, having no space between them. So there are altogether three different types of epithelial tissue here in this picture. Now squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. So if you look carefully here in these three different types of epithelium tissues, so you cannot see any sort of space in between the tissues. So that means it is tightly packed. So these tissues are tightly fit together and there is no space in between the tissues. So this is how the structure of epithelial tissue looks. So the cells of the epithelial tissue are tightly fit together, having no space between them. So here in this diagram also we cannot see any sort of space in between the cells of epithelial tissues. So it is the cells or the tissues of epithelial is compactly tight, or there is no space in between the tissues. Now what is its function? So what is the function, what is the work of epithelial tissues? Are function number one, it supports and protects the internal organs. The first function of epithelial tissue is it supports and protects the internal organs. So that is why the inner lining of the organ is made up of epithelial tissue, and the work is to protect the internal organ. Second function is it prevents entry of germs. So it also helps in preventing the entry of different types of germs inside our body. So as I told you, as I gave one example, that outer layer of the skin also is made up of epithelial tissue. So with the help of epithelial tissue, this tissue prevents entry of germs inside our body. So these are the two important functions of epithelial tissues. Now the second kind of tissue is connective tissues. As the name implies, connective tissues are specialized for connecting the various tissues and organs together. So the word connective itself is giving some sort of meaning. So connective, the word connective means to connect something with another part or another portion. So connecting the various tissues and organs together. So connective tissue helps in connecting various tissues and organs together. They are found in different structures of our body like bone and blood. So these connective tissues are found in different structures of our body like bone and blood. The cells of connective tissue contain a large amount of intercellular substance called ground substance or matrix. So here in connective tissue, this tissue contain a large amount of intercellular substance which is called as ground tissue ground substance or matrix. So now what is actually a matrix? So here you can just check this image with a small description below, just below the image, that is, connective tissues are made up of a matrix consisting of living cells and a non-living substance called the ground substance. So here matrix or ground substance means here these connective tissues are made up of two different types of cells which are living as well as non-living substance. This forms a kind of substance which is called as ground substance or matrix. Now the ground substance is made up of an organic substance and an inorganic substance, usually a mineral or water. So this matrix is nothing, matrix or ground substance is nothing but it is a mixture of protein and water. So which is called as matrix or ground substance. So now on the basis of structure and function, connective tissue are of the following types. So now again, as I told you, connective tissues are further divided into three different types, which are connective tissue proper, skeletal tissues, and fluid connective tissues. So my dear students, in next class we'll be learning about the different types of connective tissues, which are connective tissue proper, skeletal tissues, and fluid connective tissues. So in today's class we have learned about epithelial tissues, how many types of animal tissues are there, and how many types of connective tissues are there, and what is actually a connective tissue and how it works. So these are the things which I have discussed in today's class, and in upcoming class we'll be learning about connective tissues in much detail and its types. What are the different types of connective tissues? So till then, stay safe, stay at home, and please dedicate your time in studies. So thank you.